Well, hello there, great person. So there we are. End of the road for him. Well, yeah, I didn't know that this picture would be that. I'm still not sure if it is it, but yeah, that's something. The end was really good, so I can already tell you that. So we are gonna do some first quick expressions of Dune Messiah today, and then I will do a more in-depth review. Of course, I will not go so much in depth about everything because there will be in the future when I've read all the 6 books from Herbert, I will do more in-depth stuff. And yeah, some topics I will just do then and not now. But yeah, so first quick impressions. What did I think of the book? I really did like it, and for me, it felt like it was still the first novel. And I think it would have been even sensible to put them together, because the first novel had these 3 parts, at least the version I had. I think Muad'Dib and I don't know how they were called, these 3 parts, and this one could have been the 4th part, Messiah. Quite a fitting title, actually, and I really like that. And it would have fit as one book, and I really like that. So that's a positive. It's not nothing negative for me. I think reading it, there were some places where it was slower, and I liked that, and there were also places where it was faster. But I think every chapter engaged me. Sometimes I have it that I read a book and then there are these 2 or 3 chapters in the middle or in the beginning or wherever, and I just think, oh Jesus, is this gonna end? What are you gonna tell me? Was not the case here. So it starts with Paul as an emperor. I think 9 or 12 years later, or 15. I think it's 12 years later, 12 years after the last book, which is quite a bit of a time skip. So everyone's a bit older. Chani's older, Alia's older, and yeah, there is the great struggle has crossed the galaxy. So yeah, that's also a point where I think it would have been better for the 4th part of the book. Actually, I mean it doesn't matter because I read it this way, and I'm just sad for the people that first read Dune and then read this and couldn't just read it in one go, because I think you should do that. And if I would have had a version where both books were in one, I think I wouldn't have noticed. So yeah, the jihad has crossed the galaxy, and we're in Paul's council, and you see, in a way, this book is, for me, it felt like there were many people with motives in this situation, and it was just we just see it unfold. There were plans, there was something, but there was not a real, oh, this big thing is gonna happen. It wasn't there. And I liked that because it felt like I just watched that world for 1 or 2 years, and then I watched the story of Paul end, and it was not like a hero's journey as the first one was. It was not like, yeah, Paul goes out into the desert and becomes more than he was and becomes the prophet. And no, this was, they struggled with their own problems. Everyone had their own problems. Everyone had their good reasons. There was not a character anymore I disliked. So thanks to the death of Fate Rot in the last part, there's no one I really disliked. I liked very many characters. I think everyone. I liked everyone. So that's something. I think I did not have a book where I liked every character, and this was the first one where I liked every character. The ending, I will talk about that later, but man, that got me so bad. That got me so bad. Yeah, I think I cried a little in the end because that was really, really bad. I mean, I've said it once in a video before, I don't know which one it was. If Chani dies, Jesus, yeah, it was not the only thing that happened there. Well, man, that really hit me. That was very, very hard to read. And you knew it was going to happen because it was in his foresight, and we're going to talk about that later as well. So yeah, the end was sad but great. Many things that were going on, also not in this book, but in Dune as well, were they came to a close, but there was not a close that was definite. So you have room for I don't know, like yeah, Children of Dune, which I'm gonna dive into. I haven't read a single page of this because I just finished Messiah yesterday, and yeah. By the way, I don't know if not if when the review will be out for this one because it's thicker. I have to take more time, and I want to take the time because Messiah. Wow, do I like Messiah more than the first book? Yes and no. There were parts I liked more, there were parts I liked less. But all in all, it was the same universe, the same story. And yeah, so those were my quick impressions. I'm gonna get into more in-depth stuff. So my plan is to first talk about some characters. So I'm not gonna say protagonists and antagonists anymore because for me there was not an antagonist in this book, save for the one we had last time, the big bad. And I'm gonna talk about that later. And we now know a bit more clearly how the big bad is portrayed here. So yeah, then I will give you some general thoughts about new things we know, like the Tleilaxu, about the Ghola, about religion and morals, something about Earth, which I found interesting. So our Earth, the ending, and yeah, then I will tell you my favorite chapter in the end. So that's gonna be the review today, and we're just gonna start. We are just gonna start with my favorite characters. I've ordered them. I think did I order them? No, I have not ordered them. Well, I will just do them in the order that I think I really like them. So the character I really like most in this book was Chani. Um, oh yeah, and by the way, Paul will not be in the character discussion, but in the discussions about the ending. So yeah, skip to that if you want to just see my thoughts on Paul. So Chani, yeah, Chani was such a great character here, and she was this way in the first book, but we did not know it that much because she was not in that many scenes, and that's okay. She didn't need to be in the scenes in the first book, but in this one, wow, she was such an honest person, honest to her tribe, her way, honest to Paul, honest to the pregnancy problem. That was done so well. And her thoughts there, and she even said, yeah, give, if I recall correctly, she even said to Paul, yeah, just let Irulan get her way, give her an heir, I don't care. It's not our baby and we won't care, and I know you won't care, which is harsh because Irulan's baby would have been abandoned in a way. Not that fine of a move, but yeah, but Chani said, yeah, do it for, do what you must for our empire or your empire. I mean, she spoke about your empire all the time, I think, but it was their empire because for Paul, she was his queen and she was the true wife and the true person he had in his life, the one he trusted most, the one he loved most. He would have done everything for, except for perhaps the absolute giving away his goals, which was the tension he was in all the time. So Chani was a great character with the others, but also for herself. So, and there was this quote from almost in the end, which it was said about Chani. I wrote it down. Nothing of the desert had been taken from her when they go back to the desert, to the siege, where they end. She ends and Paul walks away. There was exactly that where they said, and she was a Freeman by heart. She never betrayed the Freeman. She went absolutely bonkers when she found out about the contraceptive stuff. That was also, yeah, I could understand that quite a lot. And she was just a very strong-minded character. She did everything she could to give an heir to Paul, but also it was not this. Yeah, you have to have an heir to sit on the throne. that was not her, perhaps it was her intention as well, but it was, I want to give us a son or a daughter. And yeah, that's also quite interesting. I just noticed that now she was a Bene Gesserit, not fully, but Jessica trained her in the first book, so she might have had the ability to conceive the twins, which might have been her choice. And that might have been why Paul didn't see it. I don't know. That was interesting. But yeah, so she wanted that. And she also was so, she did not push herself in the foreground. She stayed in the background. Everyone knew she was his wife and his beloved and everything, but she never said, "Yeah, I'm this great person. Look at me." No, she was in the background. She cared for Paul. She gave him comfort in moments of trouble, and she was such a strong pillar. So she was, yeah, in a way, she was more deep, and I absolutely loved her character. And when she died, Jesus. Oh God, that was so bad, and I knew she would die. I knew she would die from the moment Paul saw something where he said there has to be a terrible sacrifice, and the only terrible sacrifice I could think of was Chani, because all the others would not be, they would not have affected him, because he has seen endings before. He has seen Duncan, he has seen Huat, he hasn't seen his father, but his father ended as well. And so he got used to it. You never get used to it. That's just very, I hope you know what I mean. But Chani, that was something he never ever, yeah. And Chani was the thing the Tleilaxu wanted to use against Paul, which also tells you something. He was that thing. He was his lever. He was his weakness, although I think she was his strength. She kept him human on the ground. There were scenes when he was a bit like, "Yeah, I'm the emperor, and you do as you're told." And she complied when she sensed that it was important for him. I'm not sure, but she also stood her ground. And yeah, Chani is my favorite character in this book. I hope that the movie version of this, if it should come out, will do that justice. But I think, yeah, actress-wise, I don't think we have to worry about that. And let's just hope for everything. And yeah, let's say goodbye to Chani. See you around, Chani. You were a great character. I loved you. I loved her in the first book as well, but she was not that much in it. That's why I didn't do a character analysis of her or study. I will do a character analysis of her later, one day. So, let's discuss the next character, Stilgar, who, by the way, married Hara, which is interesting. So that was lovely to see Hara in the end. And yeah. So Stilgar felt like Gurney in the first book. I don't know why. Not in the bad way. He had this role of the advisor that was loyal to his liege, which was Paul in this case. And he was the Fremen part that Paul, yeah, he was the Fremen part of Paul in a way. Not literally, but he was the one who taught him most stuff. In the first book, he was his teacher in the Fremen ways, and he was his friend. And yeah, there was the scene in the last book, so I will discuss it here as well a bit. So to give you context, what I think. In the last book, he had this scene with Stilgar where Stilgar said, "No, you have to end me. I'm the leader. You have to end me. That's our law." And Paul broke that law. And Stilgar took a lot convincing, but he agreed in the end. And yeah, they needed him because the Harkonnen were quite strong, and the Sardaukar were quite strong. They were stronger, of course, but the Sardaukar, I mean, why would you waste a good asset? That would be stupid. And Stilgar was the conservative voice to Paul and the old wise teacher in a way. Though he saw things differently, and Paul also was like, that was so interesting. Paul was the teacher to him because Paul thought that. He thought that he could influence him, and he did. But also Stilgar influenced him before that, so he made Paul the way he was. and Stilgar was there, his most loyal Fremen, not as the priest guy who just I didn't like him. Um, I didn't dislike him. He was just the weird guy that took in all the fame, and in the end, he was the traitor. So I liked Stilgar. And there were moments in the end when all is blind, goes into his vast citadel, his throne room. Stilgar's there, and he's with him. And then there's this council where Paul goes and where they want to sniff out who the traitors are. And Stilgar plays the part of the Fremen, and I think that was also the truth of Stilgar that he told them. It was not just all an act. I mean, he was loyal to Paul in the end, and he saw something special in Paul, but he did not really see the Muad'Dib. Of course, he believed it, that he was the Muad'Dib that would bring peace and whatever to the galaxy, whatever they thought. You know what they thought, like peace and stability, and yeah, that it was mostly stability and unification, I think. But you can read that differently, and of course he thought about that. But yeah, he also believed in Paul because he knew Paul, and in that scene, I just thought, okay, is Stilgar, has he been turned? I didn't think so, but yeah, it's he was the teacher, the old friend that Paul could rely on. And again, it was like with Chani. He asked him things, and he needed information sometimes for his mental abilities to work. And Stilgar was there giving him the information, but also he tried to give him advice, and he steered him a bit. And I really liked that. So Stilgar was a great character in this book, and he's still there. He will take care of the children, Leto, and something with a G. Nahima. I don't know. I will probably learn that later. Yeah, and I love that he that he married Hera. I like Hera. I forgot her name once, but I will not again. I really like Hera. Great character. So next character I want to talk about, Alia. Alia, the whirlwind Alia. I really love Alia. I loved her in the last book. Did not address her in the last review because she was not that much in the book, but the parts she had in the first Dune book were great, and in this one, she was one of my favorites as well, because she really had this problem, and it for me, her role was in most parts to see the one you pray to and how they really are. And you might argue that, and it's with Paul too. You see that with Paul too, but with Alia in a much bigger extent, because Alia is like the witch, the chaos goddess, the more of a mystical thing than Muad'Dib even, I had the feeling. And yes, everything is done in the name of Muad'Dib, as they so fittingly said. Muad'Dib will you will praise Muad'Dib when you eat, you will praise Muad'Dib. You know this scene? Yes, but Alia is, I think, more mystical, more deeper rooted in belief and not in action. Because yes, she did great things on the battle on the Battle of Arrakis, I will just call it that, when they conquered the throne. She did great stuff there, and she was very young. But here in this book, she had this ceremony, and there were the pilgrims coming to her, and she was this oracle figure, like the Oracle of Delphi, but more badass. And from the outside, she was this thing you prayed to more than I had that impression. You might think Paul was more like this, but I had the impression with her that she was the one they prayed to. She was the one that gave the advice, that saw the future, that was all Bene Gesserit at once. And she did the ceremonies. She had a temple and Paul had a palace, or whatever it was called with Paul, but it was not a temple, so she had a temple. And although we saw one ceremony where Paul, that's also interesting. Paul had this scene where he said, "Yeah, you go out to the balcony. They won't see me anyway. I don't want to. I'm not gonna do that." So then his priest guy, what was his name? Kodot? I'm sorry. It was just in 2 chapters. He goes out, has this flash. Yeah, I'm Muad'Dib, and he pretends to be Muad'Dib. Alia was not like that. Alia went out by herself. Everyone saw her. She was close to the people. She showed him her wisdom. She showed him her words. She drank the spice as a ritual in front of all of them so she could get the visions of the future, which were clouded by the Dune Tarot. I did not understand that exactly. Oh yeah, I will write that down. Dune Tarot. I will talk about that later. Okay. But yeah, so and she was this witch mystical creature that they prayed to, and she had problems with that. She had in the beginning, and you read her parts, and it was, yeah, that's what I am. I'm the Bene Gesserit. I'm all at once. I'm so I am a Bene Gesserit and can part myself from my flesh. Yes, I am flesh, but I'm also, and she had that, but she was just a girl in the end, in her core. She wanted love. She felt isolated, and the ceremonies, she felt about them like Paul, and that's the thing I think is parting them, that makes them different in this book. One of the things that Paul just says, "No, I won't go to the ceremony. You do it," and she says, "Yeah, I really don't like it that much as well." But she does it every time. She's there for her people in a way, and she just in her personal world, she just wants someone to connect to, and she probably sees Chani and Paul as well, and she wants someone like Chani, and it's not something like she wants this big, great person that is, and great, I mean, in society. She doesn't want to marry someone high up. She just wants to marry someone true, which is the same way for Paul. He married Chani, she was true. She was a true person. And yeah, so then the Ghola comes, hate comes, Duncan, I mean, it's Duncan. And yeah, she feels wanted for the first time. And that's so beautiful. And that was so beautiful. And I like that it's like when you just know something from being told, and then you experience it, and it's so much better. That's what it was with her, I think. She fell in love for the first time. She wanted his flesh, and we all know what that means. And that was so beautiful that she found a possibly true person in Duncan. In the beginning, she was a bit, I don't know. And she also dove into her visions a lot more than Paul. And by that I mean actively, because she took a lot of spice. There was the scene where she had the fight with the machine. It was not an AI. It was just some contraption without a computer, just wiring, I think. I'm not sure. And she had this fight with it, and she went to the 11th stage, and she managed that because she's so strong. I love that. And she was just naked doing that, all that stuff, and but she got into this trance. She got into a trance, and she was someone who did that. She was someone who dove into her subconsciousness again and again, which is the Bene Gesserit way. And so that really made her a person also. So it was still there. And then when she took the overdose and tried to see, yeah, that's also, she was so desperate for someone to be her truth. Let's express it that way. She wanted someone to be her truth, to bear her child, because she will probably get a child now, because she saw it in the future vision, in the foresight. And she just wanted to know. She was so desperate. She just wanted to know, who am I going to be with? I just want to know. And I mean, perhaps some of us have felt that once before. I mean, I did before I found my wife. And there were times when you think, oh, I'm going to be alone. If just someone could come along and tell me there will be someone for me, can't this just happen? And that was what Alia was about there, and I found that so relatable. And then she had this possibility, and she almost overdosed, and she thought, yeah, that's worth it. And during that, she found the person, not in the vision, but because Duncan was with her and held her hand. Beautiful. That was so beautiful. And I really like Alia. Let's see where she goes. Next, the Ghola, Duncan. Duncan. I really like Duncan. I did not feel so much for Duncan in the first part because he was in 3 scenes and then the corridor happened, and I will hate the corridor in the movie. I know that already because Jason Momoa, he will knock it out of the park, and I already saw more of Duncan in the movie than I read in the books. But in this, I love Duncan and hate this. So he appears as the trap. And we don't get to know him as a person, we get to know him as the trap. And I had, and I love that, I had to take some time for myself to really get to the point where I said, okay, I root for him because I did not see him as a person, but as an instrument. And that was beautifully done. I think that was what Herbert wanted, because he is introduced as a Ghola, as the flesh come again, as the best warrior, as a mentor, as a Zinzuni. You know, all these instrumental things are what he's introduced as, and the eyes as well. He has silver eyes. I'm going to talk about that later. That was so beautiful. He's this instrument that gets introduced, and I couldn't grasp him. I couldn't place him. Was he a protagonist person, or was he just like a robot that was there? And yeah, then we start to get this first scene with him and Paul alone, where Paul talks to him, and he's just like spouting this Sinzuni thing stuff. And it was so interesting that Duncan didn't know how he would destroy him because it was subconsciously implanted by the dwarf and Skytail. So yeah, those, and then he meets Alia, and in those scenes he became human for me again, because I loved that speaking his true name, the true name of his flesh, of his cellular memory, brought him back. Not completely, but let him emerge from his Ghola sea, so to speak, again and again. I liked that. And it was the way Herbert writes that made it possible, because you know how he writes. He's with a person in a chapter, and there's not a paragraph like between, no, not, how do you call this? Not a space between 2 paragraphs, but a paragraph, next paragraph, and you are suddenly in another person's perspective. I had to get used to it in the beginning, in the first book, but just used to it, and I absolutely love that. And that is a very nice way to really make sure you know what everyone thinks. You know, it was never like, oh, this person has secrets from you. No, you get into the role of the person that has secrets, and you know what the secrets are, and you understand their relations a lot better, and that's hard to pull off. Hard to pull off. But Herbert pulls it off. So yeah, so beautifully. And with that, it was the shift to Duncan, to the Ghola, that really made him stand out here. That you saw he wanted to know about his past. There were doubts. He liked them. It was not a lie. And yeah, so good. And in the end, I loved him. And the scene came when the stupid dwarf thing, and I loved the dwarf. It was so cool to see this scholar like Duncan that did not awake, that was just an instrument. And you could see the contrast, even though he was the dwarf thing. And what was his name? Something with a B. Bijits, something like that. He was just laughing, joking. Ah, I'm so cool. But he was just an instrument. He did not awake. And in the end, he as well wanted to awake. And he, in part, did it to awake as well to his former self. I love that. But yeah, that was his counterpart. And then in the end, when he gets activated, and yeah, because of the Alia stuff and I think it was not, yeah, it is said in the book that it was the love for Paul and Leto that brought him back, but I thought it was also the love for Alia that brought him back. And it's not in the book, but for me that makes a lot more sense, because the scene with Alia, yeah, he was supposed to seduce her. That was one of his purposes, but they talked and she addressed, and they said a Ghola is vulnerable and malleable if you address the former self. And Alia always did that. Alia called him Duncan so much. So I think Alia paved the way for the reveal in the end that, yeah, he just put away his crysknife and fell on his knees, I think, and said, "I'm sorry, master." Oh, by the way, oh, that's not the scene in the movie that he foresees where he's kneeling. I was just, yeah. So, and in the end, he leads Paul. He did serve 3 generations of the Atreides in the end, and he will serve more. Great, and good that he's still around. And yeah, he sees Paul off, and that was so heartwarming that he saw Paul off on his last walk. There he walks. Oh, that was so bad. I was so sad. And there he was, but it was great. It was beautiful, and he's with him in the end. And yeah, let me see. I wrote it down somewhere, but do I want to talk about it now? Yeah. Yes, I will talk about it here. So when Chani died, and she was Paul's truth, the truthful person he had, and when she died, Duncan took that place immediately, because Duncan became true again with her death. And I love that so much. And the metallic eyes made him a bit blind in a way, not literally, but they made him this instrument. They made him not human. And in the end, when he returned to his true self, yeah, and that as well, he always spoke the truth, but in the end, he became true. So he was speaking the truth every time someone talked to him. Paul talked to him, or Alia talked to him. He told them the truth. Sometimes he used Zenzuni philosophy to mask it, but he always taught them the truth. So he was truthful, but he became truthful to Paul in the end when Chani died. And I loved that so much. That was so great. That was so great. So his truth, the truth of words became the truth of himself, his character, his being. It all um, got together. It fused again, and emerging was his next Paul's, and it was just for perhaps a week or so before he took the walk, but there was another truth there, and he will be with the children. So I'm curious to see if Duncan will be the truth person in the next book as well, for the children, the guide, the teacher. Perhaps Gurney will come back. I don't know. I would love that. I know Gurney was not in the book. He was mentioned once. I'm a bit sad, but yeah, Jessica too. Yeah. So that was Duncan. Beautiful character. I love Duncan in this book. In the last book, I loved him too, but I didn't really get to know him. But here, I really got to know his loyalty, his truthfulness. I love characters like that. The conspirators. I will talk about them as well. They were not bad guys. Every one of them had motives that I understood very well, and they had good reasons. And I know Skylte was just, he was ending people left and right in this book, but he as well, he seemed to, he wanted to, he was like, and it's with, and I will talk about it later, the Tleilaxu in general, they're these scientist guys, he wanted to know new things. And I think in a way, he also had a problem with the Empire because it made things too strict and rigid, and yeah. But so whom did we have? We had Mohiam, Helena Gaius Mohiam, I think her full name. I finally got it, even though now she's gone because she failed. You failed. But yeah. She's a character I understand when people don't like. the character, but I loved the character. I liked her in the first book because she was this old person that was wise but very close-minded, and her close-mindedness in the last book was her downfall, and in this one, her yeah, she couldn't recover from that. She made one mistake. She made the mistake of underestimating Paul, and that cost her everything. And the Bene Gesserit as well. And here she just tries frantically to save her experiment, and with her experiment I mean the Bene Gesserit experiment, the Kwisatz Haderach experiment. She wants to save that so badly, and she just fails in the end. I love that. And she has this pristine aura, but it is shattered. It is tainted, and when people talk to her, yes, she even in the first chapter, I think, where Irulan and Edric and Skytail and her, when they talk, she gets one-upped by Skytail once or twice, quite badly. I love that. And then again, what I also said before, I don't know where, but I said it before in the video. The Bene Gesserit were so stupid in the first book, and they get told that so badly in the first chapter. I think they were here are the 5 reasons why you were an idiot and failed, and those were the reasons I thought up as well. I mean, it was so great. And she's this person of a bygone era in a way. She's the person that tries her plans. She thinks she's got it under control. She does not have anything under control. Then she does the conspiracy. Then Paul absolutely blindsides her twice, I think, and Alia too, and the others too. And yeah, so in the end, her conspiracy fails. Edric the Guild Navigator. I liked Edric. Edric was fun. I really liked his description and the spice tank. And I think I'm still not sure what the stupid slug thing was in the Dune movie. I think it was supposed to be Edric. I don't know why he was a slug thing. I thought it was more interesting to have him this frog-like human that was a bit weird, that had these other thoughts, other priorities, and they in the first chapter where he was introduced, he was because we saw a lot from Skytail's perspective. They thought he was an idiot. Basically, they thought he was an absolute idiot, and they just thought, hey, yeah, let's just use him. I mean, he's just a navigator. He will reveal our presence. Let's just use him. But I thought he was better than that, and he did some things, little things, not like he didn't do X and then X happened, but he did some things. And when he went to Paul, I loved that scene so much when he went to Paul and they had this talk, and the Paul's Fremen were around, and he talked to Paul, and Paul did not realize that he was talking to the Fremen. That was so great. That was Edric, I think. And he was because he was a navigator, so the first navigator we see in the books, he can fold space, and he can compute a lot. I'm not sure if it said that he folds space. I think that's from the Dune movie that I have that in mind from the Dune movie. But yeah, he's this person who just takes in the spice and can do mentored stuff, but 1,000 times better. And it's like he's getting immersed into the physical world. And that would make sense if spice does what it does, and what I think it does. So yeah, Edric liked Edric. In the end, he was, I think, beheaded. Perhaps not. Perhaps he was just ended. Yeah, so Irulan. I liked Irulan. I disliked that she did the contraceptive thing, because that was so beyond cruel. That was the cruelest thing in the book, I think. But I get where she came from, because Paul was so mean to her. And in that, she wouldn't have even been in the conspiracy if Paul had just done some sport with her. I mean, what's the problem? Chani was into it. I understand, though. I liked Paul's suggestion with the artificial birth. That was good. That would have made sense. And I know that it was implied a bit that the Clay Tleilaxu did that with using forbidden tech, and that might mean computers, which makes sense, but I don't know. And she just wanted a child. That was her wish. She was Chani, but she didn't get her wish. Chani got twins. She didn't get anything. She was just in that conspiracy because she wanted a child. That's so. I mean, that's a pure reason. I understand that. I can understand that she did horrible stuff with the contraceptive, and she ended Chani by in the end. And I don't think that Paul knows that, and no one will ever know, perhaps. But yeah. So she poisoned her. She made her weak. She gave her the contraceptive. But I understand. I mean, I'm not with her, if you know what I mean. But I understand why she did it. And I understand that. So yeah, if someone says to you, yeah, you're a fertile, good-looking woman, and she seems to be beautiful from her description, really beautiful woman. You have been the daughter of an emperor. Now you're the wife of an emperor. But yeah, you can't have a child. Have fun doing stuff in the castle. I don't know. Don't fulfill what you wish most. Here you have everything but not what you want. That is torture. That's so torture. I was so sorry for her. I was mad at her when I found out with the contraceptive. But in the first chapters, I felt so bad for her, the poor woman. But yeah, everyone is shades of grey in this book series. So she did the contraceptive stuff and she survived even. And I don't know what happens to her now. Um, and yeah, she did. She killed. Yeah, good. Ooh, yeah, she killed Chani. I mean, let's be fair. She did in the end, but it was just probably her last resort. She was just desperate, and I'm not gonna say that was okay what she did, but I get her point. Even though I hope I mean, she got her punishment was before. I don't know if she gets punished now. Then we come to Skytail. Skytail was fun. I like Tleilaxu. I hope we get more of those. I will talk about the Tleilaxu in the next section a lot more because I love the idea of the Tleilaxu. And he was cunning. He was clever. I think he was the cleverest one of the conspirators. He almost managed to. His plan was good. His plan was good. And even I loved it so much as well in the end when they said, yeah, but what if Duncan just didn't awaken and ended Paul? Yeah, then we could bargain with Alia with Paul. That was so genius. It was so well thought through. If Paul hadn't absolutely conquered the jihad for a brief period there in the end, that was good. And his face changing, and when he went to the Fremen veteran, that was so good. I'm looking forward to see more of the Tleilaxu. I can't say more to Skytail right now because yeah, in the end he just got a dagger to his face, I think. And he lost. And he was cunning. And yeah, that was his philosophy. They have to have a way out. And I like that. I mean, it's a bit like Saw, but more demented. Yeah. That was everyone I wanted to talk about in the character section. So I might talk about others down the line. I will make videos about others, but that was what I thought about the characters, the main characters. Now let's go to some general thoughts, like the last one where we talked about the spies. So first, the Tleilaxu. So let's start there. I love that idea. What impression did I get from them? I got the impression, and it's with her, but it's not never explicitly stated what exactly they do. It's just they can do this. But how they do it, that's up for you to decide. And I like that, and I will do theory videos on that in the future. But so the Tleilaxu were the engineers of the galaxy. So the guild are the mathematicians and they were the engineers. So what did they do? We know they did bioengineering, so they can take one cell or two cells or some cells from dead flesh if they are still alive, you know, or if they are recently deceased. They can take that, they can clone someone or regrow them, and they can then condition them to become what they want, like a slave or an advisor or a king, perhaps even that they control. And there was this one statement about them, I think, that completely encompassed them, at least in this book. I don't know if we will learn more in the future. They defy the idea that things cannot be done. So it's like the ultimate scientists. They're the ultimate scientists in Dune. And yeah, they don't have thinking machines, but perhaps they have some parts there because people. No, they don't. When they talked about the artificial baby making. I'm sorry, I forgot the word. The artificial baby making with Irulan and Paul. They said that the Bene Gesserit hated it because it went against their ideas. Because the Bene Gesserit, and I will talk about that in a moment, had some other thoughts about things. So it was because it was purely flesh thing that they did with creating things. But they were engineers, and they did not only engineer organisms, they also engineered machines, and they also engineered societies. That's what they tried to do. And that was interesting. So they did cultural engineering. They had the Ghola eyes, the Tleilaxu eyes, which was interesting. The eyes were such a, I mean, you could have taken any part of the body and made it into a Tleilaxu, what is it called? Like when you artificial limb, yeah, like an artificial limb or something. But they chose the eyes, so they can recreate eyesight. Might even control that. They can condition people. They have tanks where they grow stuff, and they are this. I had this picture. I thought that everyone there on that planet was like Mayuri from Bleach, like this mad scientist who didn't care about ethics and morals, which is said in the book. They don't care about ethics and morals. They just create. They want to engineer. They want to see if something can be done. And if someone tells them this cannot be done, you wait, mate. You know, that's their thing. And they're a bit nasty and ugly and disgusting by the way they act. And they have this face change technology, which is interesting. And yeah, that was so interesting. I like the introduction of them. I like them. So next thing, the Bene Tleilaxu versus the Bene Gesserit. Yeah, so the Bene Gesserit, they both were engineers genetically, but the Bene Gesserit had a lot of emphasis on the mind, on thoughts, on emotion while creating things, like while creating life through the act of love. They thought that it was so important to have your feelings there, to imprint the social and emotional structures somehow onto the children. And I mean, they have this as well. Their ritual to become a reverend mother is drinking the water of life and then becoming all of the others from the past, and their minds and their ideas. And the Tleilaxu, yes, they can do ideas, they can train them into you, but their main thing was like, yes, we will just engineer and engineer and engineer and engineer. That was so interesting. And I wonder, I think this Bene, this pre-word they have, Bene Gesserit, Bene Tleilaxu, that's something might be from, they might both be in a way religions, because we know from the last book that the Bene Gesserit were, I think, one of the 3 remaining religious. I hope I don't get that wrong. If I do, please let me know in the comments. I think they said there were 3 left, 3 religious, so to speak, groups. But yeah, that might have been then that they said it was the navigators, the mentats, and the Bene Gesserit. But I'm not sure. They seem to be like this religious order, but religion as science is their religion. I like them. I hope we get more. So, yeah, and we just take that train of thought. The Ghola. I like the Ghola concept. At first I wasn't sure. I thought it was okay. This is a bit okay. I know this. It's like a zombie that might have feelings. Okay, it was a bit mean of me, but I love the Ghola. So they recreate things, and they can be reawoken. We know now. They perhaps in the future they use spice to do it because we know that spice can have influence on cellular memory, which is a real thing, by the way. At least in theory. And I will talk about that later, not later, in another video about the cellular memory. And there will probably this month be a horror story out that I wrote where cellular memory is used to try to create life. And yeah, they take this idea of cellular memory and they now will have to figure out how to reawaken the Gholas more effectively because Duncan took a lot to do. I mean, they had to have Alia and Paul, and then this incredibly tense and special situations to awaken him. But I mean, they're scientists. They will. I mean, I'm a scientist, so I can kind of understand where they might be coming from. So they will try to replicate that. I can guarantee you that. I can 100% guarantee you they will try to replicate that. And they had a Quetzalcoatl Ghola, so they just that's also so funny. They took the Bene Gesserit way, and they just did what they did through thousands of generations. They just said, yeah, let's take some DNA, let's just rearrange it. Oh yeah, perfect DNA, great. Yeah, here Ghola, go. You're a Quetzalcoatl, and then it absolutely went. I don't know what happened to it. Probably it went haywire or whatever because it couldn't become true because they didn't know how to reawaken it. And perhaps they even created it from scratch and it had nothing to go back to. I don't know that. Perhaps we will find out one day. That would be fun. Hmm. Yes, and the metallic eyes. I love that. I love that about Duncan because, he was hated at that time. So he had the metallic eyes, the Ghola eyes, and the Ghola spoke the truth. And yeah, the eyes are a symbol for truth often because you can see. You see through things and you understand through your eyes. You understand things that you see the truth, and he had the metallic eyes, but he spoke the truth, he didn't see the truth. But it was so interesting that I have to think about that more. I will, and I will do a video on that one day as well. But yeah, the eye symbol is such a not as a direct symbol told, but I mean it's also on the book box that I have for my books. There's also the eye on top with the spice in the eye, and yes, that's obviously Paul's visions or something else down the line, or the spice visions in general. But it's also here again the metallic eyes seeing truth. Can they see truth? No, they can't because they don't know who they are. They can't see the truth of their own selves. And I think that's also, for me, that's symbol. I mean, it might not be intended, but for me, that's a symbolic thing because the Gholas seem to speak the truth, but they can't see the truth of themselves and they have the metallic eyes. So, yeah, that's also symbolism for me. Obviously, perhaps some stupid thing I think, but I really like that thought. It made sense to me. Yeah. Then I put down next thing I want to talk about good versus evil. Good versus evil in this book. There is no good and no evil. There are just people with different opinions, and then there's the looming coming of the chaos that is the antagonist. So yeah, there evil. There is change. I mean, that's something I've thought about that a lot in my life. A lot. And in this book, I think it's the book that showed me best. And the other one did in a way too, because we saw Vladimir and why he did stuff. But there was the stupid a-hole, Fate Rorter, and he did not. He was evil. I'm sorry, he was evil. So we had an evil person in the last book, a purely evil person, just wanted self-pleasure and just didn't care for others and wanted to be emperor. And he was, yeah. So, but in this book, there was no evil person. So we saw people struggle with time, with change, with stability and change, with societies changing, with ideas clashing. Every idea had its place. Every idea they had in this book. So every person, I think, in this book has a core idea that guides them. And brilliant writing. You should give your characters goals and ideas that they adhere to. And this is the most perfect example of that I've seen. So everyone has their ideas, and they just clash. There's nothing there. And what pulls them in the end through this horror is the future, the jihad, the time itself that they try in a way to beat, and it's beating them so badly down. I love that about this book. Good versus evil, no. If you want to read a book where it's just humans being humans, and they're and different ideas clash, and they do horrid things because of that, and they do beautiful things because of that. That's just that's what this book is, and I love that so much as well. And yeah, it's not, let's do this example. Let's take Game of Thrones. That comes close to something like this, but you have the White Walkers that just destroy everything. You have this chaos force that destroys everything. And in this book, this chaos force is time itself, the time and purpose that there is in the end, and that Paul is fighting knowingly, that Alia is fighting a bit knowingly, and that everyone else is fighting or being used by. But all have their own ideas, all have their motives, all of the purpose. I understand everyone's actions in this book. Everyone's actions. I love that. There was no one where I said, yeah, you're being a selfish prick, and yeah, just go away. If you were not here, everything would be better. No, because that as well. You could replace people, and by that I mean, let's say Gaia just had a heart attack after the first book. Will be another Bene Gesserit that will have her same viewpoint, because it's her ideas that are taken through Gaia into this book. The Bene Gesserit ideas. She's the spokesperson for those ideas. So yes, she is a character. She made mistakes, and that's obviously inside there as well, which makes it brilliant. But the idea is also there. The idea is fighting other ideas. I love that so much. Let's talk for a bit about the Dune Tarot, which I didn't really understand. So it seems, I don't know who produced it. Perhaps we will find out. Perhaps I missed it. I might have missed it. I'm sorry if I did. So is this tarot, and it might have been produced by the Bene Gesserit, because Gaia had it as well. Mohiam had it as well in her cell, and she used it. So there were many people on Arrakis that were perhaps a bit presentient. Well, they could look into the future a bit. So they all used it, and it clouded time a bit for Paul and Alia, and a lot for Alia in the end, because I imagine it like Alia sees the surface of the ocean normally, and then the tarot came and there were waves, and the waves are influencing each other, and she can't tell where something is anymore and how it flows. Like if you have, like, let's say you take the ocean, you put a leaf on top of the ocean, and you see the current just drag it somewhere. That's how Alia sees normally. And through the tarot, there were so many droplets, like it was rain, and the leaf would turn around and go, and she wouldn't even know if it would stay up. And yeah, I like that. So the tarot, that's what I got from it. I think the Bene Gesserit created it. I think, as far as I know, it wasn't stated. I might have missed it because of my not native English speakerness. So yeah, religion and morals in this book, that was also a topic. It was quite heavy topic. So, and by the way, that's where morals come from religion, as far as we know. And I don't know, I mean, I know a bit psychology there. It's not my main area of psychology, obviously, but I know that religion is the precursor of morals. Or no, that's not completely right. Religion is a first expression of morals that are forming like a game. Morals are forming when you play with others, but it's also forming through religion, because in many ways religion is telling you how to live, and there are many. I mean, look at it. That's my view. You might disagree. I know that this might be a topic where you disagree with me, because everyone has their own opinion there, and that's great, because that's exactly it. So it's like there are many cultures that have their ways to live, mostly depicted and fused into their religion, and that's their basis. So that's something that worked for generations and thousands of generations. It worked. They told stories about it, and they told the stories about nature as well. So they knew how the world works in places, and that was what they wanted to encapsulate. There is a great paper from the 1920s or 1930s. Actually, if you're interested in that, I might link it in the description. Please let me know if you want to. That is a paper you should read, and there is a book about that as well. And it's The War of Ghosts. It's an experiment they did in psychology. So they gave the story to, I don't know what it was. A story like this. It was 3 paragraphs about some, I think, Native Americans that were attacking some settlers, or the other way around. I don't remember. And they gave people the story, let them read it, put it away, and told them, yeah, write it down. So they had, I think, 2 minutes or 5 minutes. I mean, they varied it, and they had a time. So they read it once, put it away, and then they had some time, and then they put it down, and then they wrote it down again. And then their story was obviously shorter. And then they took this story and gave it to another person, and then the person read it and put it away, had some time, I think. I might get some details here wrong, but the gist is important. And then they gave it to another person. In the end, I think they did it with 20 to 30 people. There was just 1 sentence left. And that 1 sentence didn't change anymore. And I think even, and I'm not sure about this point, I would have to read it up. They did it again, and about the same sentence came out. It's like this game you play when you whisper something in someone's ear, then that one whispers something in the other one's ear. So that's something that, if you tell a story enough times, the core that is true about through all the people that heard the story and thought about it and retold it, the core remains. And that's in a way religion, I think, how it started, probably. I mean, it's a psychological effect that's proven, and we know that stories were the first. Stories through pictures, stories through tales and words were the first emerging communication things. I mean, because that was important for culture then. There was a day when it wasn't enough anymore that you could jump high, but you had to tell your ancestors not to go get eaten by a saber tooth. I don't know, and so morals and so morals and religion are always close, because religion is like the tale we tell ourselves about how to act, how our morals are, and that's something science can't tell you. I mean, we could have a statistic what ends more people or so, but yeah, so that's something. Yeah, that's like morals come often from religion. That's the basis. So. And there are several religious systems, and what is interesting, there are things in common about religious systems which I like, and I think those messages that are consistent through more than one religion are perhaps even more valuable than religions by themselves. Although I think religions themselves are also incredibly valuable. But anyway, so. That's in this book as well. The religion of Muad'Dib is created. So by that, and all that what I just said is to say this. The religion that Muad'Dib created for himself is, Paul tries to tell the people, and it's even in the book, I think, in a sense, Paul tries to tell the people how to live, his vision of what the world and living should be, how you should live through the universe. And that's why he tells himself sometimes that yes, this jihad is also a good thing in a way. And he sees the other versions of the future as well. But he also says, okay, I have to do this. Let's make it the best thing I can do, even though it's terrible, which is commendable. So he sends it out. He just he sends his people out. He sends his religion out, and that's why he creates his religion, to give morals to people that he thinks are worthwhile, even though, yeah, I mean, he's influenced by Caladan, by the Landsrat, indirectly, because that's their worldview, the worldview he grew up in. Then he has the Fremen worldview, and he takes that and he thinks that's also so good. And then, yeah, he just goes from there. And I love that in this book. It's you understand why he's doing the crusade and what he's using it for, and it's exactly that. He wants to create a religion to create morals and people and ways of life and people, and I love that. Though it obviously goes horribly wrong, because changing others against their will is not possible. You have to tell others things, and they have to think about it by themselves. And if they say, yes, that's okay, they can change, but you can't change other people. I mean, look at what's happening right now. You know what I mean. You see the news. Yeah. So I liked something like not just something completely different. There was this part about Earth. We heard about Earth for the first time. This ancient world, this world from the past. There were records of it. There were still even video clips, I think, about Earth from long past. And he spoke about Mauritania, I think. It called Damascus. He spoke of Damascus. So he spoke of the desert of our world, which is, I mean, logical, because the Fremen are a desert culture, and they probably have parallels, and their roots are probably in Damascus and the Sahara Desert and stuff like that. Atacama Desert, I don't know, some nomad tribes, obviously, and I mean that fits, and that's where they are probably inspired from. So Herbert probably got inspired from that. But that was so interesting that they chose this part, and that and then, yeah, they had the two bad people. I'm not gonna tell you who they were, and they say, yeah, this person, he killed 2 million, and this person, he killed 6 million, and you know which two persons those are. I'm not gonna name them because I am not allowed to, because this is YouTube. So yeah, and then Paul says, or the person that's been told to says, I think it's not Paul, it's Stilgar? Is it Stilgar? I think it's Stilgar. Paul says Stilgar, yeah, look at that. Look at the records. Or it's someone else. Might be someone else. I just was so flashed by the fact that, yeah, there were these names that felt so strange. And she said, yeah, we are at, I don't know, 60 trillion billion. I don't know what it was. And it was so much more. It was so 63 billion. I don't know. It was wow. And the jihad was mentioned again. It was this terrible thing that happened that absolutely made every thinking machines, probably, and I will say it now. I didn't want to say it. I wanted to use that in another video, but I can say it here. I think thinking machines are quantum computers with AI. So a normal computer might even make sense in Dune, because it's not. Yes, they do think a bit, but it's like some circus. Perhaps the first computers only, not the real ones from today. Where I mean not the one you are looking at currently, perhaps not that, or your phone. Not like that, but the first computers, something like that, might exist currently in Dune, but not the quantum computing, and not because that's probably what AI will be. If thinking AI might be, like I said, I will talk about that later one day. Yeah, but we see that is absolutely forbidden. No one likes it, and it was terrible. 2 or 3 sentences, they were terrible. That was a terrible time. Yeah, and to end my general thoughts, the Fremen Dream is alive. Last chapter, I already wrote down, so I made notes while reading. Some notes, the ones I've ordered and I'm doing my review from currently. And I wrote down, Fremen Dream, is that still a thing? And yes, in this last chapter, when they go back to the siege, where Chani and Paul have their last moments together, and perhaps on their own as well, probably. Yeah, the Fremen's dream is alive, the water is flowing, green is coming, it's starting. Okay, so yeah, the dream, it's alive. I was glad that it was alive. Pardo did his thing. He did what he wanted. It starts. Let's see if it can come to fruition. I would love the last Dune novel to be, and it was green, and in the distance there was the desert starting with the worms, where once the Fremen had lived, and once the desert had stretched across the planet, but now we tamed it and made it beautiful through our efforts through generations. I don't know, something like that. That would have been my chosen ending for Dune, but let's see how it ends. Endings. Last point on my list. I want to talk about the ending a bit more because it made me so sad. I loved it. It hit me right in the face. I didn't expect it. I read and it made the book for me. It made the book for me. There were good parts in the book, but I thought, okay, where is this going? Is this going to pay off? It paid off so well, so well. So it starts. I think it is 5 or 6 chapters before it's the end, and it gets so solemn. And Paul starts to see the moon crash down. He's the moon moored deep, moon falling. His symbol is the moon, and he sees it coming, and we know it's coming. And then, oh yeah, I know what that stupid shot from the movie was. And yeah, so the moon is and we know. And I knew it was his ending. I didn't think it would be in this book. I thought it was be in the next book. So yeah, it starts with that. And let's talk about Paul now, in the end, because he is such a great character. I love Paul's character here. He might be one of my favorite characters in fiction ever. Now, he's not my favorite character in each book he is in, and even not by that much. He is up there every time, but there are just other ideas and people I like more. But his journey in general was so great because what Paul showed, that there can be good people that can be that may tumble, they may fall, but in the end they will join us in the light. Yeah, in the end, yeah. Let's start. So Skytel says this, and it's exactly what happens through the first half of the book and what happens in the crusade. He says the jihad used him. Skytel knows that. Paul knows that. So our antagonist, this great crusade that's coming through time, that took Paul, and Paul let himself get taken by it because he saw much more terrible things happening. And it's not said or implied, but I think it's about the Fremen. The Fremen would have been absolutely banished from I think perhaps even more people, but that's what I think. And it starts in the book as well. He knows it's terrible. He doesn't like what he's doing, but he does it anyway because he thinks it's good. And it's not good that it's perfectly good. It's good because it's the best thing he can do, because he can see the other timelines. He can see that everything else is worse. So he's just saying, yeah, this is horrible. I'm doing it because it will be more horrible if I don't. Which we don't know if it is. It's just his judgment, but that's very wow. So, and then he's ruling. He has created the religion to inspire his morals into everyone in the universe that is known, and it's there. It's a giant empire, but he knows every empire will end. He says that as well, and he's being told that. He knows it's not infinite. He knows it's ending. He knows it's just a little wave in the ocean of time. He knows that nothing will happen in a billion years from his life. It will all be forgotten forever. And he has to make this decision, and it starts it's even in the second or third chapter, and it's said the first time there is a sacrifice he will have to make, and I knew it was Chani. I immediately thought it was Chani, and I hated that. And yeah, in the end, it was the decision between Chani and his heir. And another decision was his family. No, no, I will talk about that because it's not here. His heir versus Chani. Will he have an heir with Chani or will he have Chani? And he started gripping fate more and more and more. And in the end, it said that there is the strings of fates are going through a lens, and Paul is the focus. He's gripping every string of the fate, and that's what he was trying to do to ensure that Chani didn't die or that his children would be born. And probably he wanted both, but then yeah, he didn't manage that, and so his downfall starts then with not with Duncan, but when he gets blinded. And that was so out of nowhere. I had to read that 3 or 4 times. So he goes to this council and he wants the conspirators' names, goes there, goes away, and then this flash bomb, like a modified nuclear bomb that just burns away the eyeballs or part of the eyeballs and makes you blind. It exploded there, made him blind, so he could not see anymore. And it's again the theme of the eye. He couldn't see anymore, but he could still see the future. And through that, the future merged with the present. So that is the point where he stepped into the focus of the lens of fate, where he saw everything because he could see absolutely everything. And everything was now and in the future. And he had completely submitted himself to the evil guy of this novel, the fate that is terrible that comes. And he had not given up, but he had just said, okay, let's do this. I've seen worse things that might happen here. He says that yeah, so that's good. I like that. And then he refuses to get the fake eyes because he can see truthfully. And he goes into it, and Chani dies, and he's getting twins, and he hadn't seen that there was a string that escaped him, and everything collapses. I mean, he saves his family, and he he manages to free his family. He doesn't manage to free the universe, but he manages to free his family. And he hopes, I'm not sure if it was in the book, but I think he hopes to, through his family, free the universe one day, perhaps. And yeah, then he's really blind. He can't see the truth. He can't see the future. He's exhausted. He is spent, and he did his purpose. He was just used by fate in the end. He did his best. He tried. He rode fate into the best possible directions, but it still was a terrible fate. And in the end, he accepts. Yeah, and it's the contrast to Stilgar from the first book, where he says, no, I'm not going to end you because I'm not going to do the Fremen thing here in some parts. In the end, he becomes Fremen because he's a blind man. It's said again and again. It was a bit weird, and then I understood why they said it. If you're blind, you will go into the desert because you're useless to them, and you end. So that's what happened there. Went into the desert. He was content. He was happy. His children were safe. He probably wanted to be with Chani. He went into the desert, was really blind, and he became Fremen. And the Fremen would always, always, always see that their emperor was not above them, even though that was all through the book that they, everywhere, it was always in the background that they thought, okay, he's getting weird, what's he doing? He's not one of us. In the end, he was one of them. And he was a good person. In the end, he was a really, really good person. I loved it. He was a good person. He sacrificed himself for the universe. And I think he even could have had the family life he wanted in that siege. And they had prepared something for him where he could hide with his family. He said no. He says no. In the end, the universe is more important. Which is, yeah, good person. Even though you could argue that saving your family is also a good person. But I mean, those were the decisions he had and the thoughts he had about that problem. Both of them made him the good person he was in the end. I loved it. So, and also so he got the Fremen loyalty, and the others did not. The conspirators wanted to rule, but they had now no one behind them. Only the little parties that were backstabbing each other all the time. And then in the end, also Paul's legacy, the ruled influenced the rulers, is a quote I wrote down as well, because that's what it was. In the end, the Fremen knew they had influenced him. He had come from a foreign world into their world, and they had taught him their customs. He had gone together with them against the Harkonnen, conquered the universe, and in the end he was the emperor, and they formed the emperor, and the emperor acted for them, through them, and he was theirs and they were his. It was two sides, you know? They were together. He was Fremen, the Fremen were in him through the universe, and yeah. That was the ending. And then yeah. So, my favorite chapter. I will close it with that. My favorite chapter was the chapter where Farrokh tells his tale, because the way that was written was just beautiful. The way he described the water, the feelings of the foreign world, the wonder, the awe. It reminded me a bit of my favorite chapter from the first book, because it was just this raw beauty that someone experiences, and the visions he has, even though it was not the vision of the future but of the present. But yeah, that was my favorite chapter, and the ending chapter, because it was so solemn, so beautiful. And in the end, Paul became one with the sand. Shai-Hulud is it called that? The great maker. He went to the great maker. He became one with the desert that had, yeah, that he had tried to end as well with the planting things. And the ending chapter really hit me, and I cried. Yeah, I did. And I'm looking forward to the future. I will not speculate about what will happen in Children of Dune, because I have no clue. And I would not have guessed any of this book. It was a great book. And I wished it was the last part of the first book, but nothing bad to say about this one. So, anyway, hope you like these ramblings about the book. Please tell me your thoughts in the comments. If you like this, consider liking, subscribing. It helps a bit. We're almost at 100 people here in this little community. And yeah, I will take some time with the next book. It's big. See you around. Have a sandy, make a day. Bye.